Today, I'm going to be feeding some fish. Hello guys, welcome back to another Seki's Reef video. Today, like I said in the intro, I'm going to be feeding some fish. Now, I haven't actually done this on my channel yet, and to be honest, feeding fish is kind of one of the most exciting things to do in the hobby, of course, because you can actually interact with your fish and, you know, just feed them and make them happy. There is some considerations that you need to take before you actually feed the fish, because you don't want to be feeding too much, you don't want to be feeding too little. You want to be feeding at that right point, and you want to know if your food has the right nutritional value for your fish, because you don't really want to be giving your fish junk food all the time. Right then, so let's actually look at the types of foods you can actually get. There is loads of different types of food on the market. I'm going to be showing you what I have. So first you have got the traditional flake food, of course. So this is just marine flake. Now, I normally feed these in the mornings. Then you've got suspended food like copepods. I've got the frostbite copepods here, and this food is basically dead, suspended copepods. I feed this in the morning as well, but I don't feed flake and copepods. I alternate between the two every day in the morning. And then we have quite a different food. It comes in loads of different brands, but I have got the D&D H2O ocean paste. And now this is kind of like a paste or like a putty or something that you actually stick on the side of the wall, and your fish actually like peck off it and eat it. So it's more exciting to watch this food because you can see your fish actually work or like forage for your food instead of just eating it from the water column. Now, I don't really feed this on a schedule. Like every now and then I'll give them it for a little treat. There is another brand like this called Mastic. That's basically exactly the same as this, but this food actually feeds corals as well. So corals can actually consume this food. And the last food what I have is actually not here, it's actually in the freezer because it's frozen food. So you know the old typical frozen brine shrimp and mysis. I feed that every night, a mix between the brine shrimp and mysis, mostly mysis, to feed your fish. Okay, so now let's actually start looking to see if your food is actually nutritional enough for your fish. So this flake food, so these flake foods tend to have actually quite high protein. Now you want your protein to be about really 50% or over for healthy food for your fish. So if you look on the back, you can see that it says the protein is 49%. Now that's around 50%, and the fat content is 10.5, and then blah blah blah. You know, we were only looking at the protein. So if the protein is about 49%, 50%, that's actually a good food. So let's move on to copepods. So these frostbite copepods have about 4.2% protein, so it's actually considerably lower than the flake food, and of course the fat is 1% and the fibre is 0.6%. So that's the copepod food. Now for this reef paste, the protein on here is actually 31%. If you can actually see it on camera, it's actually very small, so hopefully you can see the 31%, but the protein is 31%. You've got liquid, which is 6.7. You've got ash, I don't even know what ash is, 3%, moisture is 50%, carbohydrates, blah blah blah. So the protein is actually 31%. And finally, the brine shrimp and mysis, they normally have about 4.2% protein in the food. Okay, now we've done that, let's move on to how much you should be feeding for each food. For your flake or any other food that is about 50%, you need to be feeding quite little on this food because the protein is very high, so it will be very easy to overfeed. So you only need to put like a little bit, like a pinch in, and your fish will be fine. For copepods on the other hand, copepods, brine shrimp, mysis, they're quite harder to overfeed in a way. Because the protein is very low, you can actually feed a lot of that to the fish and they won't really overdose on their protein and it will be fine. For the reef paste, I only just get a little pinch as well and just stick onto the glass, and they normally just enjoy that as a little treat. So we've gone through all the boring informative bits and the theory. Let's actually get to the practical and actually do some feeding. So let's hop over to the tank and actually do some feeding. Okay, so now I'm gonna prepare the frozen food. So normally I do half a cube, basically a quarter of mysis shrimp and a quarter of brine shrimp, which adds together to make half a cube, of course. But just for today, I'm gonna be only doing some mysis shrimp and not brine shrimp, only a quarter of mysis shrimp, because I'm gonna be feeding quite a lot in this video. So they'll probably already have big bellies. Okay, so what I do is I'm just gonna get a cube of the mysis and just drop it in the little cup that I have right here. Then I'm gonna get some tank water and I'm going to just squirt it in the cup. And what I'm gonna do is just like mix it to just wait for it to defrost and wait for it to defrost. So I'll be right back when it defrosts. Okay, so it's pretty much defrosted. So what you're gonna do is now take it to your tank and feed your fish. Okay, so all you need to do now, like I said, is just get some of the mysis or brine shrimp and just place it into your aquarium and let your fish feast. Okay, so on to feeding copepods. So this is really simple. All you do is just pour a little bit in. So what I normally do is just pour a tiny little bit in the cup or in the little lid, like that. Only a tiny little bit, and because this food's really concentrated, that'll be all enough for the fish. So now we bring this to the tank. Okay, so now all I'm gonna do is just get the little cup and just pour it into the aquarium. And if you look very closely, you can see the copepod starting to mix in the water. Okay, so now I'm gonna feed the next food, which is marine flakes. So again, this is a very simple food to feed. All you do, just get a little pinch of the food. Remember, small amount of pinch because it's very high in protein, and then just dump it into the tank. If you want the flake to sink, you'll just have to stick your hands underneath the water and it will just, waterlog and sink. So let's do that. Okay, so if you do, you can use tweezers instead of your hands, so it can avoid you sticking hands into your aquarium, so you can do that. So I've got a little pinch of flake now, and what I'm going to do is just put the tweezers down into the aquarium, just let go and let the little bits of flake float around in the aquarium for the fish to eat, of course. And my last food is the reef paste. So all you do here, you just undo the reef paste, and it's kind of, just like a putty or a paste. And all I do is just pinch a little bit and then roll it into a little ball. And all I'm going to do is just stick that on the glass. So let's do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just open this up, get it, and then stick the little ball on the glass. You can see it's on the glass, and all they do is, go and peck on it and forage for their own food. So it's actually very cool to look at it like that, instead of them just eating from the water column. Okay, so we have done the fish feeding now. Let's actually move on to coral feeding. So the food I use is Polyp Lab Reefoids. Now, and this is a very good food for your corals. So it says on the back how much you need to feed for the size of your aquarium. You basically have to mix it in water and you know what, let's just leave it for us to do it. Let's actually go back over to the tank and actually make the reefoids and actually feed them. Okay, so now we're gonna feed the corals. So I've already got the reefoids prepared. So basically all you need to do is just open up this reefoids and then take 4 scoops of reefoids and place it into the cup, and then add 6 milliliters of water into it. And then just mix it until all the clunky bits are dissolved and you've got your liquid. So let's go to the tank and feed some corals. Okay, so what you do now is, of course, turn off any flow and filtration in your aquarium. So I've just turned my return pump off, and my wave makers off. I'm just gonna wait a little bit for the flow to stop. And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna get my cup and I'm gonna get a coral feeder. Now you can buy these and suck the food up into a coral feeder. If you don't have a coral feeder, you can just use a syringe and just stick your hands in there and just feed it to the coral like that. But I don't really like sticking my hands in the tank, of course, so I just use a coral feeder, which is like a really long pipette or something. So I'm sucking it up right now. So what I'm normally doing is just stick it in and start feeding the corals. Now the Glamour is very hungry and very picky, and he always goes and tries to nick the coral food. He's already been fed, but he still eats the coral food. Very greedy. So right now I'm just feeding all the corals, just one by one. If I just pick the camera up, you can see that I'm feeding the Gonny, which I haven't actually showed yet. This is my new Gonny. I'm going to speak more about it when it comes to the update video. My GSP, eat that, the GSP on the wall, just spray a bit of food on that. And yeah, I don't have much coral, so I've actually fed all the corals. Oh no, I haven't fed one down here, there and there. So that is basically how you feed corals. Quite simple, but that's what you do. Anyway, once I'm finished with all the coral food and there's a little bit left in the container, all I do is just pour it into the tank and just broadcast feed. And that is just basically I'm gonna turn on all the pumps and that in a minute, and it's just gonna mix with the water and the corals can catch it by themselves. Okay, so now I'm gonna start turning on all the pumps. There we go. The pumps are starting to come on. And here we go. So that's really how you feed corals. Like I said, pretty simple. You can add something in afterwards, some extra additives. There's loads of different on the market. I'm pretty sure there's one called Red Sea Energy. I think it's Red Sea Energy, and the one I use is Fuel. If you want me to do a video about that, I will do a video separately about Fuel, which is another way of feeding corals, which helps them, which replaces trace elements in the water, which then they absorb and of course grow from that. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed this feeding video. I know at the start it was a bit boring, but we got to the actual practical part in the end. And remember, if you haven't yet and you want to support me, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. That will really support me on my journey on YouTube. Anyway, that's it today, guys. Hopefully you have a good day, and like always, happy reefing.